This sparkling abomination represents the crippling weight of my failure as an art student, and today I'm going to show you how to create it using nothing but the power of your imagination, the latest version of Blender, and enough RAM to appease the browser gods. Delete your browser history followed by creating a default cube, add the ocean's modifier, and change its appearance using the choppiness, scale, and resolution values. Once you have appeased the math gods, animate the ocean by flipping to the first frame and inserting a keyframe. Flip to the last frame and set the time value to something between 1 and infinity and insert a keyframe. To make the animation smoother, pull down a new window and flip to the graph editor, select all keyframes, and set the interpolation to linear. After playing around with the animation, it's time to implement some shaders. Switch over to the shading tab and change the render engine to cycles. Change the display to render and then create a new material. Delete the principal shader and add a texture coordinate node. Create a mapping node and plug the generated output into the vector input. Next is separate the XYZ values, add a separate XYZ node and take the vector output from the mapping node and plug it into the vector input. Add a color ramp to control the color of the waves and plug the Z output from the previous node into the vector input on the color ramp. Lastly, create a glass shader and take the color output from our color ramp and plug it into the color input on the shader. Plug it into the material output so we can see the results. You can change the color of the waves by changing the color of the nodes on the color ramp. Next up is time to add foam. Flip over to the modifiers tab and check off the generate foam box. Set the coverage to a desired value in the foam data layer, enter foam. Add an attribute node and set the value to foam. Add a math node, change it to power and plug the color output into the first value input. Add a diffuse shader and a mix shader. Plug the diffuse output into the bottom input on the mix shader and the gloss output into the top input on the same shader. Take the output from the math node and plug it into the factor input on the mix shader, then plug the mix shader into the material output. You can increase the quality of the foam by increasing the resolution of the ocean modifier. Finally, to adjust the overall amount of foam, you can change the value in the math node to increase or decrease coverage.